What up, nerds in the simulation? As you can tell by the audio we just posted, that is the show bed for the Whiskey and the Surfer podcast. And here I am without any music, working on just the phone, which is why you can hear the AC raging off in the distance. I had the music bed ready to do the podcast today. I had the top and the most fake Florida news available, plus my own scorching takes about the current state of... Can you believe how many good results came from the most purposeful fuck-up in the history of American politics? I mean, I never served in the military. My dad did, and his job in Vietnam was to move around equipment and forces and remove the dead. It would make sense that if you were preparing to remove yourself from the region, you would remove all American contractors, you would remove all Afghan contractors with a known past to working with the United States. Are we on the same page? Americans out first. The folks who helped America out second. And then finally, the military. It's hard. It's not hard. It's impossible. Impossible for me, based on my worldview, based on the news that I get, based on my most tightly curated social media feed, I cannot unsee that the end results of this, quote, fuck up, number one, the fuck up is purposely done because it guarantees more troops. More troops, more money. Oh, where's all our equipment? You mean the equipment you gave away? Well, we got to buy new equipment. More money. But we're not doing any more forever wars. No, we're not. We're doing a forever withdrawal from our last war. And it's not going well by design. Because if me, a comic, can simply put together a plan of the best way this would work out, if it was left to the experts. And who are the experts? You guys remember Five Eyes? Remember when the United States used England to spy on Trump, and France to spy on Trump, and Australia to spy on Trump? Well, are you telling me that within the Five Eyes organization was not the foreknowledge that Kabul would fall immediately? Are you asking me to believe that? The greatest nations in the world, at their top, at their peak, at their best technological advances in surveillance, those five nations together could not come together to figure out that Kabul would fall immediately? And we all see it. And so if the best and the brightest and the most paid for and all of that good stuff can't figure it out, but we can figure it out, then you have to just assume that this is purposeful. It's a purposeful accident. And when you have an accident, then you have well, let's talk about that. It was a purposeful accident. Let's talk about that. A purposeful accident breeds plausible deniability. And so we're watching, is this going to be the one thing that finally sinks Biden out of politics and hands the presidency over to Kamala Harris? Maybe. Was this cooked into the cake in the beginning? It's hard to unsee that no matter how bad things get, the outcome for one party in the United States always seems to be exactly what they needed. We need a moderate statesman to be the face of a campaign who never campaigns. He's the face of a failed withdrawal, and I'm sure you're going to see, look, if they're calling, this awful takedown, this awful troop removal, if they're likening it to Saigon, if they're likening it to Vietnam, and where's Kamala Harris going next week? She's going to Vietnam. And so while the world purposefully burns around Joe Biden, who becomes the scapegoat, and all of a sudden MSNBC piles on, CNN piles on, Fox continues to pile on, doesn't it seem like it was all baked in from the beginning? This isn't reactive. Again, you have 5 nations working together for the top surveillance and intelligence, and we're asked to believe that despite the fact that they have this technological advantage, we're always operating from a reactive place. And I can't unsee that. You can't tell me that you have the greatest surveillance and knowledge, that every one of our cell phones is bugged 9 ways to Sunday, that every surveillance camera and cell phone camera has been co-opted by the deep state, that they have the information as the information is created, and they have the AI which explains to them when the new information is going to be created and by who. Forget about They Live as a documentary. Minority Report is the documentary. It's pre-crime. It's foreknowledge. We exist in the timeline that we exist in, but heaven makes decisions that are beyond this timeline. And so heaven may have already made a decision beyond this timeline. And if you ask me why there is so much of a repression campaign being run, a demoralization campaign being run, where every level and facet of society is being divided, right, left, the vaxxed, the unvaxxed, the people who believe in God, the people who don't believe in God, you have the evangelicals, you've got the Catholics, you've got everyone is divided. And then within each one of those bodies of peoples of faith, they're interdivided. Why? It would make sense that. Look at the byproduct of the work that's being done in this demoralization campaign always has the same outcome. Take a once great institution and divide it and conquer it. Whether it's CNN, whether it's the Fed, if it's the White House, if it's the Vatican, if it's Joel Osteen's dentist. The goal is to occupy or destroy and then occupy every single institution to move along this anti-human agenda. Where you have people within the same family who have amazing, cogent intelligible arguments about what they believe, but because of the demoralization campaigns, because of the artificial intelligence, because of the dis and misinformation being put into society, family members choose to not have conversations. And if you wanted evidence of a global attack against the family unit, there it is. And so that's ultimately what's being divided. Because in the true order of order, it's God, it's family, it's country. And so what you have is a society where God is removed, and it's tribe, and you're done. So if your tribe decides that you're going to defend this Afghan city and get every single person out because that is the thing you would expect from a heroic hero from the 80s, then we shouldn't be shocked when there's an absolute shit show and people falling from the sky just like they fell from the sky. The reason that we got into this seems to look a lot like the reason that we got into this. If we draw down the troops to zero and we stop our forever wars, how are we going to make money beyond labeling 1 or 2/3 of our population as domestic terrorists? Is there money in that? Or can we put together a project that somehow, by hook or by crook, instead of a drawdown, all of a sudden we have 2 times more troops, 3 times more troops, because they got to go get these pre-hostages. We have to ask permission from the Taliban to move freely about Kabul. The same Taliban that we ask permission for when we ask to do things freely as Americans, we only do so because we buy their gas. This is not what operating from a place of strength looks like. And that's part of this demoralization campaign, to further divide. And so what's the answer? It's to be 100% joyful, 2,000% grateful, to look and laugh back on your stories of your life and find joy in them and love to share them. It's praising the fact that you are alive. It's praising God. We've already won. God wins. We win. And if every single storyline that's created in your reality seeks to create division, my dear Aunt Sally, dear my Aunt Sally, is that not what's happening right now? In a perfect disordered state of society where it goes multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Have they not subverted division into the first place? The primal state of disorder is that they're changing my dear Aunt Sally to dear my Aunt Sally, where division leads. And every storyline that's created, and every news item that's created, and every glowing white guy screaming in his truck in the middle of a street somehow with $29 worth of ones around his truck. to seek to create division. See them, see how they act. It's dividing people by race. None of us had a choice in it. Divide us by class. When we started, none of us had a choice in it. So what do you do to fix this disorder? If the order is multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and they're choosing to force the second position, division, into number one, where they create the division and then you multiply the people who believe in that division. You add a storyline that bolsters your position, and then you subtract your political rival. Did I not just explain communism killing 100 million people? The issue is that all of our science, all of our order, all of our mathematics are built on the fundamental order of operations, which is now being subverted. And every single day, we're being fed storyline after storyline. I posted on my Facebook. If you want to figure out what's going on right now, read Noam Chomsky with the voice of Vince McMahon. You have to look at every single news angle. Does it have a catchphrase? Then it's gone through very, very, very high levels of marketing to make sure that it's the most sticky storyline possible. Because it's not going to work unless it is. And all of this stuff is pre-planned in advance. And what can beat it is not the further division, but it's looking at all of us as free Americans who are being used in a cabal of hatred, of division, of violence, to have you so scared that you'll gladly give up your human rights. And then one day, again, we've already won. So the public will wake up to this very, very simple proposition. You're alive, and you have the ability now to enjoy that life, that gift that you've been given to enjoy. Or you can engage in another scary, divisive story that was marketed and handcrafted to ruin your life. And it seems to be a very, very, very simple choice. Except that the fear-based media is so good at what it does that there's a reason that it feeds that fear sensor in your brain. It kicks off the dopamine, and you feed on it, and you return to find more of it. So then a simple change, instead of fear, you come from a place of knowing. You understand that there's a demoralization campaign. You see the fake news for what it is. You see the grifters for who they are. We've already won, so you're operating from a place of having won and or are currently winning. And if you are winning at such a level, do you have any free time, or would you waste any free time engaging in divisive narratives that you know to be false? And though then you exist in a place of gratitude, you exist in a place of giving, you exist in a place of forgiving. Remember, because as a person of faith, You're only as forgiven as you forgive. You are the first mover in that process. You've forgiven, so then God will forgive you. And you're going to have a face-to-face conversation with God. And if you've chosen to have the advocate of Jesus Christ to represent you, the universe's top lawyer, who will say, look, we all know this person is a fuck up. Here's what they did good, here's what they did bad. But come on. Are you telling me that if I chose them as my client, you would not dispense me mercy, since I am you? So get your affairs in order. Make sure that you are preparing to have enough food, sustenance, and any other supplies that you may need to survive at least 30 days without any electricity, any running water. Expect the 3 days of darkness to be not a surprise because you already know it's coming. Instead of the way people are going to fearfully act and divide when they're fed a telephone game's worth of misinformation in the middle of a catastrophe. And if they already know what the outcome of botching a hostage rescue is at the troop removal in Afghanistan, and they know that the byproducts of all of these missteps actually benefit them, then you have to understand that it's a plan. In the same way, it's planned to divide up humanity, God's single family. And the one thing that will end this, the one thing that will speed this up to its eventual end, is all of us coming together as human beings, as a human family loved by the Holy Family. And therein lies the simplicity of all this. You exist in the knowledge of your faith. Beyond believing is knowing, is being. God bless.